Hello, eighth graders. This is Baxter. He's an old gentleman. I believe he's 12 years old. Um, he really likes my beard. So today's lesson, we're going to be working on the square roots and the powers into equations. So the key is that we're going to remember that square roots and squares are opposites of each other, and opposites cross off in an equation. Like if you want to get rid of adding, you subtract. If you want to get rid of multiplying, you divide. So if you want to get rid of a square root, we're going to be doing the square. Here is a nice easy equation to start. Square root of x is equal to 10. So all we're going to have to do is get rid of that square root. The opposite of the square root is the square. So I'm going to put a little 2 up in the air here to square it. And please remember, whatever you do to one side of the equation, you're going to have to do to both sides of the equation. So over here, the square and the square root are going to cancel out, leaving the x. And over here, we do 10 times 10, which is 100. So that's a nice easy answer. Our answer was 100. Now, it might have more stuff inside of there. For example, this one. I can't get at that 4. Like, you might want to say plus 4 right away, but we can't get inside that square root until it's gone. I like to say it's like inside an egg, and you can't get at the yolk until you crack the shell. So to crack that shell, that square root, we're going to do the opposite, which is squaring it. If I square that, I'm going to have to square the other side as well. So over here, the square and the square root are going to cross each other off, and I'm going to be left with v minus 4. Over here, I've got 3 squared, which is 3 times 3, so I'm just going to write the 9. And then we can just finish it off like we've been doing with other nice straightforward equations. And so in this case, v was 13. It doesn't matter what side it's on. I'm trying to get rid of that square root shell. So to crack the shell, I'm going to do the opposite, and I'm going to square it. And I'm going to square that 10. So now I've got 10 times 10 is 100. Over here, the square and the square root are going to cross each other off. So I'll just have the m divided by 10. Okay, now I know a lot of you don't like this way of writing division as a fraction, but that's just divided by 10. So to get rid of it, I'm going to do the opposite, and I'm going to say times 10. And then I'm going to have to do the other side times 10. So 100 times 10 is 1,000, and these two cross off, so my answer is 1,000. Okay, so now up to more complicated one here. So I will start with my wall so we can see the two sides clearly. The right side is a -3, so that's nice and straightforward. The left side, I need to get rid of that square root, but I can't do it until it's by itself. If you look back, these other examples, the square roots were all by themselves when we did them. There was nothing else around them. In this case, we have this -8. So it'd be nice to just get rid of that -8 first. So opposite of -8 would be adding 8. I'm going to do that to both sides. That will leave my square root of 5a minus 5. Over here, -3 plus 8 is 5. That's a lot of 5s. Okay, so now that the square root is the only thing over on that left side, and I can't get at the 5a minus 5 because it's inside that shell, I'm going to do the opposite and square it on both sides. So over here, square and square root cancel out, leaving the 5a minus 5. Over here, I've got 5 squared, which is 5 times 5, which is 25. Okay, finishing it off, I would be doing the opposite of minusing the 5, which is adding the 5. I do the opposite of times 5, which is divided by 5. And my answer is going to be 30 divided by 5, which is 6. Okay, so again, I've got something going on here more than just a square root. So I would like to get rid of that 10 that's sitting out front. The 9x I can't get at until I get rid of the square root, but it's got to be by itself. So what's going on when there's nothing in between a number and the next thing is multiplication? So this is currently 10 times. So I want to do the opposite and divide by 10. So now I'll have the square root of 9x is 60 divided by 10, which is 6. Okay, the square root is by itself now. So to get rid of it, I'm going to do the opposite, which is squaring it. If I do it to one side, I'm going to do it to both sides. These two cross off, leaving the 9x. 6 times 6 is 36. And to finish it off, divide by 9. 36 divided by 9 is 4. Okay, another one here, and then we'll try something even more. So draw my wall. I want to get at that m, but that 10m minus 1 is inside the square root, and I can't get at it until I crack that shell. And I can't do that until the shell is by itself. So let's get rid of this plus 10. So let's start by subtracting 10. That's going to leave the 10m minus 1 inside the square root, and over here a 3. Opposite of the square root is going to be the square. Square and square root cancel out, leaving the 10m minus 1. 3 times 3 is 9. And then from here, just solve like regular. Opposite of minusing 1 would be adding 1 on both sides. Opposite of times 10 would be divide by 10. And we got m equals 1. Yes, Baxter, we can hear you. On our next one, we have square roots on both sides, and that's not really going to present that big of a problem for us. To get rid of this square root, I'm going to put a square on it. And then when I do it to both sides, that's really just going to cancel both sides out. And so now I've got the equations without the square roots. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the opposite of minus 7 and add 7 to both sides. So 18 minus x is x. I'm going to do the opposite of that minus x and add x. So I've got 18 is 2x, and if I divide by 2, my answer was 9. Now just a quick heads up that some of these are directly on your homework. So you are welcome to try it again yourself and see if you can do it, or just rewind this video and watch me do it again and jot down the answers. Okay. I'm going to draw my wall so I see the two sides. I'm going to square to get rid of those square root symbols. So 2k plus 40 is negative 16 minus 2k. I've got k's on both sides, so I'm going to subtract my smaller one. Well, to get rid of this minus, I'm going to be actually adding 2k. 2k plus 2k gets me to 4k plus 40 and negative 16. Next, I get rid of this number by itself, this plus 40, so I'm going to minus 40. So 4k is negative 56. I'm going to divide by 4. K is negative 14. Okay, so that is if the square root is in the equation. We could have the squared in the equation, like this next one here. And actually, we've been doing ones like this with our Pythagorean theorem. So it's not too new to us. We're just going to do the opposite. To get rid of the square, we're going to do the square root. But we can't do that until it's by itself. So let's get rid of this minus 3 that's attached on here first. And we're just going to add 3. So that's 13p squared is 4212. I'd like to get that 13 off as well so the p squared can be completely by itself. So we've got 4,212 divided by 13. That comes out to 324. I'm going to do the opposite of square. This is what's new this lesson. The opposite of square is square root. If I do it to one side, I'm going to do it to both sides. So I'm doing the square root of 324, and that is 18, nice and even. Let's do one more of those. Okay, these look big. You'll notice that the last ones were small to start and got bigger, and these ones are big and they get smaller. So I'd like to do the opposite of this minus 17, which is going to be adding 17. So 8r squared is 2488. I'd like to get that 8 off so the r squared can be by itself. Okay, so opposite of square is square root. I'm going to go to my calculator and type in square root of 311, and it does not work out as a whole. So I would rather not do that. Second thing I'm going to look at is, can it be simplified, which means could I divide any of these magic numbers into it? And I don't believe we can. 64, 81, 100, and so on. So I am going to just leave my answer as square root of 311. That is considered more precise. Okay, so tonight on the homework, it is homework 7.7. You're going to have practice on this, like I said. Quite a few of them are ones that I just did. So you are welcome to try them and then come back and check, or just get it out and follow along with me as I do it here.